A cold front moved through today, but we're not done with the wet weather yet. What to expect for Easter weekend and how the weather could impact travel.
An attempted robbery in West Valley City that led to a car rolling over on this freeway. I'll explain what we know so far.
Renters in low-income housing in downtown Salt Lake City say they don't feel like they're getting what they paid for. Why they feel helpless to prevent homelessness and drug use in and around their home.
And housing affordability for first-time home buyers. What Governor Cox signed today that has other states already looking to Utah.
They only make the best, and they make them right here in Utah.
Here we are, the number one brand in bowling.
How this Brigham City brand pushed them to the top of the bowling ball world.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Our top story tonight is the weather. We saw plenty of snow fall in northern Utah this afternoon. It has calmed down tonight, but we're expecting more storms this holiday weekend.
Let's send it right over to Utah's Weather Authority meteorologist Allison Krogan.
Yes, our front came through this afternoon, stalling in central Utah tonight. We saw some areas of snow, mixture of some rain and snow, back to some rain. So if you had any accumulations on your grass, probably has melted by now. 39 here in Salt Lake, 41 degrees currently in Ogden, 36 for Provo. As we look here across northern Utah right now, snow is winding down here across the central Wasatch Front. Southern Wasatch Front, Utah County, we still have some snow going down towards about I-70, areas of rain into the west desert. Now we head into the next couple of days and we've got Easter weekend ahead of us. Many people traveling along I-15 along our higher mountain passes this weekend, and we are expecting some periods of heavy winter precipitation for our mountain passes. Into tomorrow, some isolated showers will be possible throughout the day, and then we'll be tracking potentially our heaviest precipitation late Saturday into Easter Sunday. We'll have more on that coming up in just a bit.
Allison, thanks so much. What started as an attempted vehicle robbery led to a rollover and car fire that closed the ramp from SR 201 to I-15 in West Valley City for more than an hour this afternoon.
It was a mess. Fox 13 News reporter Maithili Gubi explains what happened.
This started out, the original call that we got was a robbery.
That was in the area of these apartments at 4000 South Redwood Road. A driver, possibly from Walmart, had stopped his vehicle and was trying to make a delivery.
He observed a gentleman get into his car and attempt to steal his car. The delivery driver had been smart enough to remove his keys.
Police say the delivery driver confronted that person. 2 more people pulled up and the delivery driver says someone pointed a gun at him. The 3 suspects took off and the delivery driver followed them. They started here by 4000 South Redwood Road, drove on Redwood Road to SR 201 and the northbound I-15 collector. That's where the car rolled over and caught on fire. Police say the weather might have been a factor.
2 of the people got out of the car, ran to a waiting white vehicle and fled in that vehicle. And officers arriving on scene were able to take one of the persons from the car in custody.
Police tell me that if you find yourself in a similar situation, not to follow the person because it could put others and yourself at risk.
I'm not aware of any other vehicles being hit, just the suspect vehicle that flipped. But obviously there could have been a lot more danger to the public with this guy following them, so just let him go, let us try and find him.
In Salt Lake City, I am Maithili Gubi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
West Valley City police are still looking for 2 suspects who fled from the scene.
The Brighton man accused of pulling a shotgun on a snowboarder last month has now been charged. The video of the incident went viral. Here it is. Lauren Richardson says he and a few friends were riding back from Brighton Resort to their rented cabin. Their path took them through 67-year-old Keith Stebbing's property. Stebbing is accused of pushing Richardson while holding his gun and saying, "If you do it again, there will be holes in you." Stebbings now faces a felony charge of aggravated assault and a misdemeanor charge of making a threat of violence.
New dash camera video shows the end of a chase involving UHP troopers and a 12-year-old girl who took her mother's car and wound up on I-15 earlier this month. You can see the moment troopers turned on their lights, and then you can see the car in the center of your screen. The chase began near 4500 South, ended near 9400 South in Sandy. trooper pulled alongside the sedan and then performed a pit maneuver. You'll see it right here. You can see the car slow down some and then spin out of the carpool lane right there before coming to a stop. Nobody was hurt. The 12-year-old was released to the custody of her parents. UHP and the juvenile court system are determining whether there will be any further punishment.
Renters in low-income housing in downtown Salt Lake City say they do not feel like they're getting what they're paying for.
Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree explains why they feel helpless to prevent drug use and homelessness in and around their home.
Are you just about the bucks, or do you actually care about your properties and the people that live there?
Living in the Pauline Downs apartments on 300 East for 10 years, Darren Peary says he's seen and endured a lot.
There was a female that was running down the hall screaming her head off. This is like 4 o'clock in the morning and you got people camping out. You've got garbage going on in the back and people out in the front.
He says he often feels neglected by management.
They get tax benefits, they get this, they get that.
Recently, the Central City Neighborhood Council shared these photos and videos exposing the poor condition of the apartments.
We will continue our monthly inspections of the property to make sure that the problems don't manifest again.
Claudia O'Grady says the property owners are not in good standing with the Utah Housing Corporation.
This is truly an anomaly. We just don't see this in the 500 plus units that we have financed across the state. It's fewer than 1% that is problematic like this.
One of the building's owners says he's seen what's been going on and is working hard to make these apartments safer for the people living here.
We've been working with the neighbors on the street and have pooled together resources to hire an armed guard security service that is there between 9 and 5, and then they also come in the evenings to check the street and the building.
Corey Waddup says things have improved since those images were shared.
It's not indicative of the condition of the property. There has been, we've really struggled with a homeless population in the area all along the street, and they have been continuously breaking into the building and in the common areas.
He says the issues Pauline Downs faces are the product of a greater problem that cities like Salt Lake are dealing with.
With the help of the city, we could get this under control with the homeless population, and combining resources with the city and the armed guard service to just increase the safety and the quality of the property.
In Salt Lake City, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
That's one thing you always should know is your firearm, and that's not a toy. It's really not.
A West Jordan father was shot and killed by his best friend trying to be funny with a gun on video. Tonight, his friends react.
Plus, 2 women say they felt unsafe after being pulled over by an officer in an unmarked car. What you should do if you're ever in a similar situation.
And the search is on for a man who's been missing for 2 weeks. What police and his family are saying about his disappearance.
Real Salt Lake has a new star player, and he's just 17 years old. Coming up, we'll introduce you to Fidel Barajas.
Clinton police have launched an internal investigation into a traffic stop after 2 frightened women say they were followed from West Haven to Roy and pulled over by an officer in an unmarked car. Taylor Butterfield and Virginia Jensen noticed they were being followed by a white Ford Explorer Tuesday night. Scared, the 19-year-old women drove past their home in West Haven, where surveillance video actually recorded them going by. They headed toward the police station, and the unmarked white Ford Explorer turned on its police lights. Then they stopped in Roy. They say the officer was in a SWAT gear and didn't identify himself clearly.
It tells me, put your hands on the steering wheel. So I have to put my hands on the steering wheel, and I'm shaking, I'm scared, and then he tells her to put her hands on the dash, and he's like, do you got your license and registration and your insurance?
The next day, Roy police confirmed it was a Clinton police officer who stopped the women and that a formal complaint has been filed. Police experts say if you ever feel uncomfortable being stopped by an unmarked car, slow down, turn on your emergency flashers, find a well-lit area, and call 911 to confirm that it is indeed a police officer.
In an attempt to be funny for a video, a West Jordan man allegedly shot and killed his best friend. According to the arrest report, 29-year-old Anthony Sanchez told officers he did not know the gun was loaded when he pointed it at 27-year-old Dylan Miller. He was booked for negligent homicide, felony discharge of a firearm, and possessing a dangerous weapon by a restricted person. Miller's friends don't know how to process the tragedy. The 27-year-old leaves behind a child, a daughter born only 6 months ago.
I was in disbelief. I couldn't gather words. It's just something you hear of in nightmares and in stories. It's not something you'd think that actually happened in reality.
That's Scotty Johnson. He and Miller have known each other since they were born. They play on a community softball team together. He plans to throw a fundraiser, community game, or tournament in honor of his friend.
Search efforts continue for a man who Spanish Fork police say has been missing for more than 2 weeks now.
Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold spoke with police and the man's family about the search.
Lieutenant Corey Slaymaker with the Spanish Fork Police Department telling me on Thursday that they first received a call on March 12th that 45-year-old Joshua Clark had left his home on the east bench of Spanish Fork under some mental health issues. He says Clark was last seen here walking in the area of 2400 South and 1400 West in Mapleton.
You know, our officers were looking around. Mapleton was looking around for him as well, assisting, and that's where he was located. But again, he would not talk to us. Information we got from family is that basically he would be very confrontational with police.
The following day, Lieutenant Slaymaker says Clark was reported as a missing person. Lieutenant Slaymaker says the family believes that Clark probably went to the foothills above Mapleton. He says Spanish Fork Police, Mapleton Police, as well as the Utah County Sheriff's Office and others have been working to try and find Clark.
DPS's helicopter has flown that area in an effort to try to locate him. There's also been a couple of other private helicopters. I'm not sure who owns them or who they were, but they have also flown that area in an effort to try and locate Joshua. There's been some searches done by drones in the area, which has not turned up anything.
He says there have also been some searches done in the area of the foothills above Mapleton by horseback, which have also proven unsuccessful so far. I did reach out to Clark's family on Thursday, and they sent me this statement saying in part that Clark is an avid hiker and mountaineer, and that he stated he was headed to the mountains, and based upon his last known location, they believe he was most likely headed towards Spanish Fork Peak. They went on to say that they would ask as people are out and about, especially in the mountain areas of Utah County, to be on the lookout for him. Looking ahead, Lieutenant Slaymaker says that Spanish Fork Police and some private dog handlers will be conducting searches on Friday, weather permitting. If you have any information about Clark's whereabouts, you are urged to contact Spanish Fork Police. That number is 801-804-4700. In Spanish Fork, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, a cold front moved through the Wasatch Front and Wasatch Mountains this afternoon. We were expecting about 5 to 10 inches of snowfall for the mountains, and that is perfectly in line with what we've seen so far. Brighton 10 inches, Alta 7 inches of snowfall. This is through 8 o'clock tonight. Park City Mountain 5.5 inches, Provo Canyon 5 inches, and then for rainfall, Cottonwood Heights a little more than ½ of an inch, and right at ½ an inch for the Magna area. So our cold front right now and into tonight stalling in central Utah. That is going to lift as a warm front tomorrow, and we could see some potential areas of showers with that, especially getting into Friday evening. And then we'll be tracking a decaying atmospheric river that'll bring potentially abundant moisture, especially to southwest Utah, heading into Saturday night into Easter Sunday. Temps right now right near freezing at Eden, 33 degrees, 38 for Farmington, 30s for Harriman, Draper, Heber right now and down towards Provo, 36, 37 in Tooele. Saw some small snow mounts there this afternoon. Cache Valley currently 37, 20s for Evanston, 60s in St. George. You can see where that front moved through, right? It stalled in central Utah. Very cold behind that front compared to this time 24 hours ago. About a 10 to 15 degree cool down here in northern Utah. We had a couple of hours of heavy precipitation, some big snowflakes at times, wintry mix here in the valleys. We had quite a bit of lightning, Nephi up through Provo. We're still seeing a little bit of snow currently coming down near Highway 6 and then into southern Utah near Beaver areas of rain and snow, valley rain, mountain snowfall. So we head into the next couple of days. As I mentioned, we're going to see our front turning into a warm front and lifting through the state tomorrow. And that is all ahead of the bulk of this storm that's going to be moving through, heading into Saturday, Sunday, into Monday. And then if you prefer nice spring weather as far as sunshine and 60s go, then early next week to middle of next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday, that is going to be your time to shine. Go ahead and circle that on the calendar. Next Tuesday and Wednesday, you'll enjoy that. End of next week, we potentially have another storm that drops in from the north. Details on that still to come together, but we're going to continue with an active pattern here across the region. So let's talk about tonight into tomorrow at lunchtime. So we're going to see some lifting tomorrow here across the state. So we could see areas of rain and snow, particularly getting into Friday evening here in north central Utah. And then we head into this weekend, and then Saturday evening into Sunday is likely when we start to see some of our heaviest precipitation. And then we head into Sunday evening, and that's when we could hear across northern Utah, potentially even see some additional travel impacts. So into Monday, some lingering precipitation is possible, but we are expecting the bulk of that Saturday evening into Sunday. Temperatures tomorrow morning when you wake up in the 30s, so anything that's remaining from the precipitation that we saw today may run a little icy at times, so be aware of that. And then middle of next week, as I mentioned, circling next Tuesday, Wednesday on your calendar, sunshine near 70 to 75 for St. George, but Easter Sunday wet and mid 50s for St. George. For Salt Lake, we have 50s through Tuesday, 60s next Wednesday. We'll talk more about potential additional precipitation coming up in just a bit. We'll be right back.
New at 9, an Idaho judge has issued a new gag order in the case of Chad Daybell.
This just days before the case is set to begin jury selection after Chad's lawyer did a television interview. John Pryor, Daybell's attorney, interviewed with our sister station in Boise in the lead up to the trial. Following this interview, Judge Stephen Boyce released a non-dissemination order targeted at the attorney's involvement in the case. He is potentially facing the death penalty in this case if found guilty, meaning Chad Daybell. Jury selection begins on Monday.
We have an update on the shooting in Sandy last month that left one man dead after a fight involving 4 people. The Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office has decided not to press charges in the death of Tony DeJoly due to what they call evidentiary issues and the unlikelihood of a conviction due to the suspect's claims of self-defense.
Meanwhile, charges have been filed against 23-year-old Molatini Vaianuku in connection to the deadly New York nightclub shooting in Salt Lake City in June of last year. Vaianuku is facing one charge of murder, a first-degree felony, after the death of 22-year-old Halapain Moala, who was shot in a parking lot near the nightclub. His initial appearance in court is scheduled for tomorrow.
Getting young Utahns into their first home. What Governor Cox signed today, the lawmakers say will help in a big way. After the break.
The cargo ship that hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge can hold almost 10,000 of those containers you see on trains and semi-trucks. That's kind of impossible to comprehend. So I found a comparison I think will help.
A push for an endangered species listing on the Great Salt Lake could be just the beginning. What else environmental groups have planned coming up?
Have you heard grapple before? If not, don't worry. I'm going to break down what it is coming up.
We don't have a Major League Baseball team in Utah just yet, but there is some local connections in today's opening day. I'll show you coming up.
Well, Governor Cox held a ceremonial signing of 9 bills today centered on making Utah's housing more affordable.
Utah lawmakers have been working on this issue for several years now, and today's ceremonial signing was a significant milestone in the process of helping young Utahns own their first home.
I have talked with just about every governor in this country on this issue. We are all dealing with this issue.
Governor Cox has called for the construction of 35,000 new starter homes over the next 5 years.
In fact, we had a poll by our home builders that fully a third of the members of the Home Builders of Utah who have projects ready to go could not get financing to create those projects. So our production went from 37,000 in 2021 to 19,000 in 2023.
Among the 9 measures signed today was HB 572.
Perhaps my favorite bill of the session.
It uses $300 million of the state's treasury money to provide lower-cost loans to developers to build starter homes. It's money the state would have invested in growth funds around the world.
Now we get to take some of that money and invest it here. We get to invest it in our people, in our builders, in our families, in our homes.
So that we have our teachers and our firefighters and our civic servants and our nurses and the people who are doing the hard work of keeping our economy going, give them a place to live in the communities where they work.
The catch to HB 572 is 60% of the homes the developers borrow the money for must be starter homes, $350,000 or less, and no larger than 1,400 square feet.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Okay.
Also signed today was HB 13, which allows developers to have access to the municipal bond market to borrow money at a cheaper rate than the commercial market. It would lessen the cost of putting in curb and gutter, sewer, and other infrastructure, a major obstacle right now. Bill sponsor Jim Dunnigan.
Since this bill was passed at the end of session, I've already had developers reach out with me that have thousands of entitled building lots that said we think this is a tool we're going to use. So thank you.
Love it. Thank you.
A lot of people worked on this round of housing affordability legislation.
So this is huge. I think it's unique. I think it's a one of one. Nobody else in the country is doing this, but I can assure you that lots of states are very, very interested in what we just did.
Again, today's ceremonial signings were just that, ceremonial. The real bills have already been signed. Now everyone is anxious to see how much of a dent all of this puts in Utah's housing affordability crisis. We, of course, will keep our eye on it.
Nationally, at the Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore, Maryland, recovery efforts have been paused for the 4 remaining missing workers. They are presumed dead. 2 bodies were found yesterday after a cargo ship hit the bridge, causing it to collapse.
Because of the superstructure surrounding what we believe are the vehicles and the amount of concrete and debris, divers are no longer able to safely navigate or operate around that.
Divers are expected to return to the site once the debris is cleared, but that is expected to take a while. The Francis Scott Key Bridge was more than 1.5 miles long, with 30,000 cars traveling over it every day. So Fox 13 News anchor Max Roth went in depth to understand the size of the ship that brought down the bridge like a tinker toy.
How can one ship knock down one of the most important and biggest bridges on the eastern seaboard? The Dolly isn't one of the world's biggest ships, but it's still gargantuan compared to any piece of transportation in Utah. So I looked for a way to give us some sense of that ship's size. A question: have you ever waited for a freight train to pass? In Utah, the largest form of transportation would be freight trains. Those average 5,300 feet long, almost exactly a mile, and more than 5 times longer than the Dolly. So the train is a lot longer, but the Dolly can carry enough containers to load a 60-mile-long train, almost 10,000 of them. That would be a train stretching from Ogden to Lehigh. The Union Pacific Salt Lake City Intermodal Terminal unloads 500 to 600 containers a day, meaning the Dolly carries about 3 weeks' worth of train freight for the Wasatch Front. The largest container ship in the world is the MSC Irina. It's about 4 football fields long. A train loaded with its 24,000 containers would stretch about 160 miles, or the distance from Salt Lake City to Pocatello, Idaho.
Fox 13 News anchor Max Roth there. Coming up, there is new discussion about the dust coming off the Great Salt Lake and efforts to protect one of the lake's migratory birds.
Well, today made it to 54 degrees before a cold front moved through. Where that front is tonight, what you can expect for your morning drive, and how the weather could impact your Easter plans.
An update to a story Fox 13 News first reported. Environmental groups are petitioning the federal government to intervene on the Great Salt Lake.
This can no longer be a state of denial.
I'm Ben Winslow at Farmington Bay. A petition has been filed with the federal government seeking to have the Wilson's phalarope declared an endangered species. But I'm told it's just the beginning, a push to get more oversight over the Great Salt Lake. They sang and danced outside the Utah State Capitol, marking a new effort to save the Great Salt Lake.
Today we submitted a petition to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to protect Wilson's phalarope under the Endangered Species Act.
The tiny migratory bird nests at the lake, and environmentalists accuse the state of simply not doing enough.
I don't see this as a battle between federal and state sovereignty. This is an opportunity to increase collaboration. It can bring people to the table to make sure that water gets to Great Salt Lake and make sure that we have the resources we need.
If it's granted by the federal government, an endangered species listing triggers new regulations and oversight of the Great Salt Lake.
The restoration of Great Salt Lake is no longer a local issue, a state issue. It's a national issue and with global consideration.
It's something some Utah political leaders oppose.
We're doing everything we can to save and preserve the Great Salt Lake. We feel very good. We're in better shape now than we've been in the last 5 years. So we don't think there's any need for a listing there, and we'll definitely push back on any potential listing.
But this may be just the beginning. Some backers of this petition are looking at endangered species listings for more birds and dust coming off the Great Salt Lake.
There are issues with air quality, both from airborne dust and the fact that the drying lake bed creates conditions where ozone forms more easily. And so we're looking at the Clean Air Act, and if there are levers there that can be used to compel action to save the lake.
The air quality situation is a big concern because toxic chemicals are naturally occurring in the lake bed. An exposed lake bed blows dust into populated areas.
If there is a high particle event, stay indoors, wear a mask.
Great Salt Lake dust was a topic at an air quality conference at Weber State University, with a lot of research still underway. While Utah has experienced another good winter, there still is plenty of exposed lake bed.
You're being exposed to extremely high levels of just particulate matter, and that by itself is harmful in the short term.
Obviously, the solution to many of these problems is to get more water into the Great Salt Lake. State leaders insist they've enacted good policies that will do just that. Conservation groups say it's still not enough. At Farmington Bay, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
It is one of 11 bowling ball manufacturers in the entire world, and they call Utah home. Still to come, Storm Products' journey from humble beginnings to international notoriety.
You've heard of rain and snow, but what about Grapple? We're going to have a look at what Grapple is and how it develops coming up.
It's opening day in Major League Baseball. We don't have a local team here, but plenty of connections around Major League Baseball. And we'll introduce you to Real Salt Lake's new star, 17-year-old Fidel Barajas, who's off to a great start with RSL.
A rare manufacturer calls Brigham City, Utah home.
In fact, Utah has been their headquarters since the very beginning, making bowling balls. Recently, I met up with the good people at Storm Products to get an inside look at their assembly line and how their homegrown business went from a love of the sport to a global brand.
It's actually only
11 different places in the entire globe that bowling balls are made.
One of those places in Brigham City.
People always say, you build bowling balls in Utah? Where do you build those at? And I said, north of Box Elder High School.
It's inside this warehouse, which has expanded and expanded over the years. Storm Products calls home.
It's just cool that it's here. It's here in Utah.
In 1991, Storm was founded by the late Bill and Barbara Chrisman. Barbara assuming the role as CEO in a business with a mission to grow the sport of bowling and to create the highest performing bowling ball on the market.
Here we are, the number one brand in bowling.
And to get there took a unique resourcefulness.
The first test balls, they mixed the urethane in a Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket. Coatings in the bucket had like kind of a mold release or a anti-cling agent, so you don't want your chicken to stick to, so you could actually, the material wouldn't stick to the bucket as bad. So it was, yeah, it's just, that was kind of the humble beginnings.
The early days of production, slim on expensive equipment and only involving a handful of people. Today, Storm employs over 220 people, making up to 4,000 bowling balls a day.
Anywhere there's a bowling center, our bowling balls get to.
Each ball produced is a 4-day journey.
Start with a polyester resin, and we have to add some fillers to that because, as you know, there's some lighter bowling balls. There's some as light as 6 pounds and as heavy as 16 pounds. So we have to add some fillers to that to make those weights different because the bowling ball is the same size. First part we start with is the core. So we have an inner core, we put an outer core on that, and then we add a cover stock that goes around that, or a polyurethane cover. And then we polish it, finish it, engrave it, and make it look nice and perform well.
Storm Products also performing well in the charity lane.
Since 2010, we're over $800,000 to the Huntsman Cancer Institute.
Taking giving back to the community very seriously.
This year, we will surpass $900,000 in college scholarships for kids.
All while striking a perfect balance of international fame and Utah-made roots.
I think the best thing about working here is it's such a family-oriented business, and it's Utah grown, and there's a lot of local people that have flourished here and had great success here.
Utah made. That was the coolest tour, by the way.
Yeah, it looks like you were having a lot of fun. Here is an actual Storm bowling ball. You can see that.
Here it is. This is my photographer, Mike, who shot the story with me.
Yeah.
This is his wife, Lisa's ball. Smell this bowling ball.
It smells like grape.
It is. It's scented with grapes. Storm Products has a patent to scent
Get out of here.
bowling balls.
I wish this was Smell-O-Vision. You could smell this bowling ball.
It is wild. So that patent was very, very clever
Isn't
of
that
them.
something?
Yeah, they said people would go into the pro shop, say, "What's that smell?" And the pro shop owner would walk them over and say, "Why, it's the Storm bowling balls."
I would imagine they also have bowling balls that smell like Kentucky Fried Chicken.
They should, in honor of their beginnings. If you would like to learn more about Storm Products, you can visit their website, stormbowling.com. Thanks so much, everyone, for such a great tour. What about your business? I'd love to see it. If you are Utah made, that means starting your business in our state and produce your product right here. We would love to share your story as well. Email me at kelly.chapman@fox13now.com.
We've got some breaking news at this hour. Salt Lake police are currently responding to the area of 1925 West North Temple with reports of a man who is barricaded inside a building. Here is what we know so far. There are no reports of any injuries. The SWAT team, crisis negotiators, and social workers are on scene. We're going to continue to monitor this incident, and we hope to roll a crew in that direction and get more detail for you here on air and online at fox13now.com.
Well, in weather news, I'm meteorologist Allison Krogan with Utah's Weather Authority. Not only is mountain snow and valley rain in the forecast for this week and this weekend, but Utahns have maybe seen a different type of precipitation falling from the sky. Meteorologist Chris Nunley explains.
You probably saw or heard something unusual falling from the sky this week. Graupel.
This isn't a new weather term. It actually dates back to the late 1800s according to the Salt Lake City National Weather Service. But it may be the first time you have heard it mentioned or noticed it falling from the sky. The best way to understand what graupel is to think about a hard snowflake or a soft hail pellet falling from the sky, or Mother Nature's dipping dots. While not a frequent occurrence in Utah, it does happen on occasion each year, especially during the late fall and early spring time frame. This is the time of the year where the weather patterns favor this type of precipitation that forms, and it does form a little bit differently than your everyday snowflake.
Basically, we have snow falling through a layer of supercooled water, and so the supercooled water droplets freeze onto the snowflakes, forming these pellets that are spherical or conical in nature.
Keep an ear or an eye out. You just may see some more graupel this week because it is in that 7-day forecast. Fox 13 Utah's meteorologist Chris Nunley.
Well, as far as the rest of tonight goes, we'll continue with winter weather advisories for the central mountains. So Wasatch Plateau, another 2 to 6 inches possible with wind gusts up to 35 miles per hour down towards Price, Highway 6. Cold front installing in central Utah tonight. We've had some rain and snow today, a little bit of graupel in some areas, with our Easter weekend travel looking potentially very tough, especially late Saturday into Sunday. So here's what we can expect for tomorrow here in Salt Lake. Low chances for precipitation early in the day, but by tomorrow night, we'll start to see those chances increasing as our cold front that's stalling out turns into a warm front, and that moves up across northern Utah and brings us the chance as it lifts here across the state for potentially some additional showers into tomorrow night. And then as we look at the forecast into late Saturday into Sunday, we're going to end up with potentially a decaying atmospheric river bringing us abundant moisture for Easter weekend. So we had the front that brought very heavy precipitation, where we still have some areas of rain and snow going right now for Utah County, Nephi, up through Provo, on and off right now. Temperatures into tomorrow morning, not too bad as you wake up, 30s for much of the state, and then tomorrow afternoon into the 40s and 50s here across Utah. The chance of precipitation is then really going to go up Friday night through Sunday night here across a lot of the state. So what we're looking at right now is Ogden. If you're just now joining us, I did mention we will see a break after this weekend storms early next week. If you're looking for sunshine and warmer temperatures, circle the calendar for next Tuesday, Wednesday, because by late next week, we have some more storms in the forecast. Following a similar pattern in Utah County, Provo tomorrow, widely scattered showers. We're mostly looking at valley rain and mountain snowfall. However, depending on temperatures and the intensity of that precipitation, we could see mostly rain here in the valleys, potentially mixing late Sunday into early Monday to either that wintry mix or that snow here in the valleys. But same thing for Provo. We're looking at widespread precipitation Easter weekend. For St. George, same thing. We're going to have quite a bit of precipitation, especially late Saturday into early Sunday. Above 7,000 feet, we have the potential for some very tough winter travel. So as we look at forecast snow totals through the weekend, this is going to be now through Sunday night, with most of this falling late Saturday into early Sunday. Potentially a couple of feet of snow possible for the Uintas and more than a foot of snow possible for the mountains here across the state. For St. George, 68 tomorrow, 55 on Easter Sunday. And for Salt Lake, we have 50s through Easter weekend, sunshine in 60s by next Wednesday.
Real Salt Lake hosts St. Louis this week. Last week, an RSL player became the 6th player in Major League Soccer history to record multiple assists in the same game at 17 years of age or younger. Here's Fox 13's Morgan Vance.
The coaching staff has been warning about him for months.
For example, a player like Fidel Barajas has shown well these last 2 days.
After 4 games and 37 combined minutes as a sub, the kid finally made his first MLS start in Vancouver, making the most of every second on the pitch.
Barajas showing aggression for Julio. He's in!
I haven't played a full 90 minutes in a good while, and yeah, it really surprised me.
But who is Fidel Barajas? If he looks young, there's a reason for that. A product of the San Jose Earthquake Academy, Barajas was inked to his first professional deal at the young age of just 15.
The only thing was it's far away from home, too young, school. So it was a lot of different factors that made my parents hesitate a little bit about me going.
Moving from one coastline to the next, Fidel not only thrived with the Charleston Battery, He became the USL's Young Player of the Year in 2023, something that did not miss the attention of RSL scouts, who managed to scoop up the Mexican/American national with a transfer deal back in January.
It took me, a little bit to adjust to the speed of play, but I feel like until now, just to get better every day and just perform to become the starter.
Of which could not have gone any more swimmingly north of the border on Saturday night.
Fidel Barajas with his first touch ahead for Anderson Julio.
The now 17-year-old midfielder didn't find the back of the net, though barely.
Barajas off the post!
Both shots, really frustrating. Second one was the most since I hit the crossbar, and it was going to be a really nice goal.
Good thing RSL did score twice in the second half to beat the Whitecaps. Both goals set up by who else?
Fidel's greatest attribute is that he's always thinking goal. He's not thinking about possession. He's not trying to keep the ball. He's trying to hit the back of the net every time he gets the ball. And so the young man's got a great future.
With Real Salt Lake, Morgan Vance, Fox 13 Sports.
It's opening day in Major League Baseball. That's former BYU Cougar and three-time Super Bowl champion coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid. Threw out the first pitch of the Royals opener. Of course, it was a strike, but the Twins beat the Royals 4-1. And former Salt Lake Bee, Mike Trout, got off to a great start. Hit the first home run of the season in Major League Baseball for the Angels in Baltimore, the 369th home run of his career. But the Orioles won the game 11-3. We'll be right back.
Finally tonight, we wanted to share with you some members of the Fox 13 newsroom celebrating MLB opening day this afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is just a sampling of the teams represented today, from the Cleveland Guardians to the Atlanta Braves to the Minnesota Twins, Toronto Blue Jays, and of course, there are the Blue Jays right there, Eric Bingham, and the Dodgers.
Dakota
Cleveland.
That's our 9 p.m. producer.
Yeah. He is a styling guy.
Oh, there's Rick.
Rick Bork, yeah.
He's a photographer here.
Started the Major League Baseball season.
Who are your teams?
Who are our teams? Who's
There's
your...
Eva. She's our assignment desk manager at night.
Yeah.
And Mike Rank, another photographer. I don't have a favorite team, really, I guess.
I don't either, yeah.
I'm wearing red for the Cardinals.
I like the Royals.
Yeah.
From years and years and years
You got to
ago.
go to the White House with them.
I did when they won the World Series in 1985.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, baby.
Blast from the past.
Yeah, George Brett.
Quick Cast is next.